Let's try that again. Welcome to the Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee meeting for July 11th, 2018. I'd like to start this meeting off with a roll call and determination of quorum, please.
Armstrong?
Here.
Laurenti?
Here.
Here. Drury?
Here. Great. Now that the quorum has been established, I would welcome a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, unless there is a committee member that needs to add, modify, or remove any items on this agenda.
Move to adopt. Second.
Great. I have a motion to adopt by Mr. Laurenti and second by Mr. Salomon. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, let's move on to our general public comment. This is the time for any member in the audience to discuss items currently not on today's agenda. Are there any speaker request forms? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? All right, seeing none, let's close and move to our consent items. Today's agenda has items 1 through 8 on the agenda. Let's open this up to any public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Quiet. Okay, let's close public comment. Any committee members wish to speak on this? Okay, well, seeing none, let's close and move on to our consent items. Today's agenda has items 1 through 8 on today's agenda. Let's open this up to public comment once again. Anyone wish to speak? No speaker request forms. Okay. Any committee members wish to have a discussion? All right, Mr. Salomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I pull item number 5, please?
Number 5. Anyone else? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adopt 1 through 8, pulling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. Motion to approve by Mr. Salomon, second by Mrs. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed? Okay, let's go to item number 5, acknowledging the May 2018 sales tax report. Mr. Salomon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I move to acknowledge. If I can get a second, I retain the floor.
Okay, motion by Mr. Salomon to acknowledge and second by Mrs. Drury.
And if I can direct a question to our Finance Director.
Absolutely.
So, Pauline, this is more of a general statement, but just reading through this, can you kind of give us just your impressions about where we are at this point in terms of our sales tax collection and expenses and everything else? Are we where we should be? What do you think?
My easy answer is to say no. We're not where we projected ourselves to be. We projected a 2% increase. So, but that's over through the whole year. I usually will tell you at this juncture, don't get overly excited. It's only 5 months out of the year. There's more that can, happen the rest of the year. The unknown in this whole equation for 2018 and even 2019 to a certain extent is what the new ruling through the Supreme Court will have with the internet sales being taxed. I know the South Dakota Municipal League is working with the Department of Revenue to try to figure out what impact this will have, as well as when we can actually see something coming through our coffers as a result of this. And my understanding from talking to Yvonne is that we still have to have the state injunction lifted until they can start requiring the vendors to be collecting taxes here in South Dakota for internet sales. So
does that happen in the legislative session, or does that happen anytime? Do you know?
My understanding is once the injunction is lifted and there's some housekeeping things done, that it's ready to go. I know Department of Revenue has already set up a section on their website for internet sales vendors, but that's about as much as they have done at this point that I'm
So
aware
it would
of.
be premature for us to say by beginning of the year, we'll start seeing online sales tax collection trickle down to the city level. But we don't know if it's before or later or what else.
We have no idea. It's really out of our hands. It's not like, okay, the Supreme Court ruled and come September 1, they're going to start collecting. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
Because that was the first thing I was asking about is when does this become effective? When will we see any kind of return? So that's still up in the air. As far as our expenses, and it's in my letter under a different item for my July reports for the general condition of the city. Sales tax is down. And if we continue to spend what we budgeted and we continue to bring in only what we have projected for revenue, we'll actually be down. Reserves will be down by $2 million of what is needed. And so the word we've been discussing it. I've discussed it with the mayor. I've discussed it, I know, with Amanda, and then also at the department director level about not spending the money if you don't have to. If you can delay purchases, delay a hire, that type of thing, to please do so. Be cognizant of where we are with cash balance. You'll see that on the next report. So May cash balance was up again, and we're still up over $8 million for June balance, but it's still below our reserve level. And so there's a little bit of concern about where we're going to end up at the end of the year for cash balance in the general fund.
And I think as we look ahead to budget season, we have so many unknowns on how the online sales tax collection is going to impact us, but the closure of several retailers. At the same time, we're hoping for a great summer season, and that's what we all are hopeful for. But I think it's something for us to keep our eye on. So
Absolutely.
thanks for answering those questions, and I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Sumption, for your insight and comments. Is there any other further discussion on this matter? We had a motion to acknowledge. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, with consent, let's move on to consent. Or from consent to our non-consent, pardon me. We're opening up to public comment once again. Anybody in the audience? Okay, public comment is closed. Now we'll move on to number 9 from the Finance Department. Okay, we have a second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6263 regarding the supplemental appropriation number 4 for 2018.
Move to approve.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. We have a motion from Mrs. Drury and a second from Mr. Laurenti. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any against? No. Okay. Motion carries. We have a okay. Whoop. Okay, we're moving to number 10. Jump the gun. Moving on to our community development, number 10. Mrs. Drury, do you have something?
Read it in.
Okay, we're going to read this. Second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6262, an ordinance amendment to amend certain provisions within the sign code by amending section 17.50.090 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Planning Commission forwarded without recommendations 7-2. The first reading was approved by our council 8-2. Mrs. Drury, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know when this came up earlier that I voted for it, but the more I contemplated being forced to change our ordinance by a lawsuit, I just want to make it known that I'm going to vote against it this time.
Putting it on the record. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have a motion regarding?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Laurenti, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
And those against?
Aye.
There we go. We have 3-1. Moving forward, from the Attorney's Office, number 11, we're going to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the standard form agreement between owner and architect with Perkins and Will Incorporated for the Civic Center Arena project. Do we have a motion? Anybody in the queue? Mr. Laurenti, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for the Attorney's Office, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Joel, or you can point me to, maybe somebody is not here for my question, but my question was really to what level are we approving all the separate parts of it? When I saw this on the agenda, I thought this was probably part of something our project management company, which we have a project manager for the entire project. I thought this would fall under their umbrella. Can you clarify that?
Certainly. Actually, the way we did it, I mean, there's different levels of responsibility that you can give the project manager, and to be honest, because the size and complexity of the city and the staff we have, we decided that, I mean, ultimately the decisions are all going to be the staff and the council decisions, all the big decisions. The owner's rep is there to help us negotiate, help give us advice, because they've done this and they have more experience at it than they do, and help us. And because, like, say, compared to Sioux Falls, when we've talked about how Sioux Falls did it and some of their things, Sioux Falls, frankly, had more internal staff. They had a project manager. Sioux Falls has project managers for projects like this that have one or two projects that they're managing. And so they have more internal infrastructure in the city to manage this project. So in this case, Tegra is doing more of the project management than, say, they did for Sioux Falls, because, frankly, we don't have the staff to do it the way Sioux Falls did it. However, the big decisions and on some of these things like this contract are ultimately the cities, and in fact the contract with Tegra makes clear that they are not our agent and do not have the authority to bind us on things like this, that ultimately we have to make the final decisions. So Tegra was an integral part of negotiating this, and we benefited from their experience on the contracts that they had helped negotiate. So basically, the city side that would review every draft of the contract was myself, Wade Nyberg in my office, then Nate from Tegra, who's the person we work the most closely with. And then we also, as I indicated in my memo, had retained Fagra Benson or Fagra Baker Daniels, and they're mainly in Minneapolis but have other offices, and because of some issues we used an attorney out of Indiana who does this, and frankly he's written a book on it. So, you know, not to downplay my abilities, but I haven't written a book on this, so I think it was a good thing. It's a multi-million-dollar contract that we had that kind of input on it, so feel very comfortable where we're at. You will also see we're still negotiating the construction manager contract, construction manager at risk, and the general conditions of construction. Those you'll see next. But because right now we're in the design phase, and we want to make sure the design keeps going so we don't delay the project. So the design contract was prioritized, and that's why you're seeing that first. But we are currently still working on the construction manager at risk and the general conditions of construction contracts. And those gentlemen are also helping us negotiate those, but those will come forward and you will see those soon as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I just thought it was a bit odd that this wasn't something that fell under their umbrella, the project management company, but because with their experience and their background with all of the previous venues that they have been the project manager on, I assume that just fell under their umbrella. But as long as we're not tying the hands of the project management company who has all of this great experience at doing all these major venues that are much larger than our own, and I understand that we are using the taxpayers' money, but that would seem to me that we would try not to get in the middle of something that private industries have proven to be extremely good at. So that was my only concern.
I just want to reiterate and assure everybody we are making the most use of Tegra in their expertise, and certainly recognize that they have more experience in this, which is why we retained them in the first place, so we don't make mistakes that they could help us avoid. But at the same time, they're talking to us. We're ultimately the customer and the client.
Right.
And they're making sure they're doing what we want. They need to know what we want to see, what our concerns are, what's important to us. And so we're all working together to come
Okay.
up with this.
All right, great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good discussion. Thank you for your question, Mr. Laurenti, and Mr. Lundin, thank you for your answers and insight. Do we have a motion on the floor? All right, Mr. Solomon moves to approve, and Mr. Laurenti seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Solomon and second by Mrs. Drury. Thank you all.